April 2nd, 2019. So, this lemon tree is a Meyer lemon tree. This was given to my mom by a friend of hers, and my mom gave it to me to keep in the greenhouse because she doesn't really have a great place for it in her place. So, this tree went through a transplant, I think maybe 2 years ago. I went out and got some Coast of Maine potting soil, the lobster mix, which is much higher in calcium, phosphorus, etc. My thought process behind that was that it would provide a little more nutrition for flowering, fruiting, that sort of thing. What it seemed to have done is give the tree an imbalanced soil, and I've struggled to get the nutritional balance back on this plant since I did that. So I did some reading up on nutrition on CitrusTrees last night, and it looks like they like something around a 20-10-20 equivalent. I don't use chemical fertilizers, so I cross-referenced against goat manure, and goat manure is a similar range. So what I'm going to do is add some soil to this pot. It could use a little more in the bottom anyway, and I'm going to add some goat manure with it, and I've mixed some goat manure and soil along with a little bit of kelp meal and some rock dust, and we're going to go ahead and top this pot up with that. I think what I'm going to do is pull the tree out of the pot, and when I do that, we'll have a look at the root system underneath and see how that looks while we're at it. And then I'm probably going to put a mixture of soil and goat manure in the bottom, probably a couple of inches, to raise that up so that there's a place for the roots to grab nutrition from below. And then I'll probably top up the top with another inch or two of that same soil mix, just to kind of fill out the soil root ball. And hopefully that will, over the next month or two, get this tree's nutrition back in balance, and I'm hoping we can pull off a good flowering and fruiting and harvest from this tree, other than a couple of lemons. The first year we had this, it was loaded with lemons, and then the soil changed, and then it's been out of balance since. I have struggled to correct it with foliar feeds, but not being able to spend the money on a sap analysis test or take that many leaves off the plant. I'm kind of stuck in guess mode here. So this is a good example of a nutritional imbalance in a plant, and I'm going to try and correct it with the knowledge that I've managed to scrounge from the internet, and hopefully it'll work. I'll do an update on this in a month or two, or maybe sooner, if I see it responding well and happily to it. It did get a foliar feed along with everything else. The other night it came through and did a C-Shield foliar feed. C-Shield is more of a nitrogen type nutrient. I'll put a clip of the label for C-Shield in here. So there you have it. It's basically 2.5.3 equivalent. So we need to increase potassium. I do have some hollow K, which is a soluble but not available, available but not soluble version of potassium. I have added that at points trying to correct the balance, but you got to be really careful. You don't want to overdo it with that. Anyway, C-Shield is excellent for vegetative growth and that sort of thing, to really give plants a good super boost. And it has some nitrogen in it, in the form of soluble, and some in the form of insoluble, as you can see right on the label. And it also has quite a bit of calcium and silica and that sort of stuff from the crab and shrimp concentrate that it's derived from. So anyway, this is an excellent product. It's from Advancing Eco Agriculture. You can always check out their website. You can order their products online. And if you have a question about your farm, you can always call them up and use their consulting service, and they can help guide you into nutritional balance. Alright, so I don't mean to be a plug for AEA all the time, but that company has really changed my farming practices and my knowledge and education level tremendously, and I'm very grateful. Alright, without further ado, I'm going to get into seeing if I can amend this soil for this lemon tree and get it straightened out. Well, I didn't even get half a step into doing this before I noticed something interesting. I went to pull this piece of driftwood that my mom likes to keep in with plants as a decorative thing. Went to pull this out, and I realized that the root structure has already penetrated that and is using it as a resource. So I would say we have good fungal activity in here. Looks like biology is doing its job. So that's interesting. Well, I like it when a plan comes together. When a plant holds together. One or both. I was able to just lift it out right by the trunk of the tree. That's a good sign that the root ball is pretty well established all through. And you can see that here reflected in the outer edges of the root ball. You can see there's roots. Pardon the shaky camera work. You can see there's roots all around it. So that's a good sign. There's good root structure there. It does seem a little dry. I think part of that is due to being near the fire so much, and also this soil doesn't have a tremendous amount of organic matter in it by the look of it, or it's not holding moisture very well. And we've got some ants in there too, so yeah, we'll have to deal with that. Quite a few ants actually. Alright, so they're probably helping that aeration a bit. So I probably could water this a little heavier too. That probably would help tremendously. I've been feeling the top inch and a half of the soil, and as you can see there are spots where it's pretty damp. But I wasn't checking deeper into the soil, and maybe I should get my soil moisture probe out one of these days and check all of these planters and see where things are really out down deep. Anyway, I thought I'd show a shot of this before I amend the soil, and you can get a look at the root ball. You can see that this plant has a pretty well established stem and root system, and I think with the right nutrient balance and the right care, it's going to blow up and become a super productive tree, which would be awesome because I love fresh Meyer lemons, and I even more love Meyer lemon meringue pie. Okay, I put about maybe 1/8 of that scoop full of goat manure in the bottom, sprinkled in a layer, and then I mixed a bunch of this soil on top of it. This is the soil that is recycled greenhouse soil, so it has a lot of trace mineral nutrition in it already and biology. And actually there were some earthworms here on top. I should have got a clip of those. But so this is pretty active biologically. And I mixed in some goat manure with this recently, and some kelp meal and some rock dust. So I've added a layer of that on top of the goat manure to give kind of a buffer so the plant can reach down its roots and reach into the nutrition rather than be just inundated with excess nutrition and cause more issues. So hopefully that'll work out. So this is a couple inch layer, maybe 2.5 or 3 inches thick, and I'm going to go ahead and place the plant back on top of it, and then I'm going to top the soil up on top of that, and then I'm going to give it a really good watering, a real deep soaking. And I might change it to a less intense heat location now that we're out of the winter. During the winter I like to keep them near the warm rocks here by the stove so they have good heat. But this time of year when the stove runs overnight, it's probably a little excess heat for them. I can't wait to be done stoking for the season. Anyway, so that's where we're at. And so now I've placed the root ball back in the pot. Because this is a cone-shaped pot and I've filled some of the bottom soil, obviously that root ball isn't going to fit snug to the sides anymore. But that's good. That gives us an excellent opportunity to top up some additional soil on top and to pack some down into the edges around there. So we have new fresh soil for this thing to reach out its roots into all around in the pot. Up, down, sideways, every direction. And then in order to help get that soil to settle in addition to wanting to get this root ball water back up to par, I'll soak that in with a real heavy watering, and that'll help settle that soil down into its respective spot on the outside edge. And I'll just show real quick that I'm also using my fingers to help push this soil down into the edge to make sure that we fill out any air spaces in there, because air spaces can wreak havoc on a root system and your watering system. So I'm actually packing this down in along the edge pretty well. And when you do that, you always want to work on opposing sides so that you don't, you know, pack all to one side or pack all to the other, and then you go back and forth, and then you work your way around. Alright, there we go. I went around and I packed it all around into the edges, and I'm sure there'll still be air spaces in there that when I water, the stuff will settle down in. I came a little bit higher than the regular soil grade, probably an inch, inch and a half. You don't really ever want to cover the root base too awful much on a plant. It's better to keep that soil level where it's at. Unless you're doing root pruning, then that's a whole different thing. Anyway, hopefully this will help correct this nutritional deficiency in this poor plant, and we'll get it straightened out and get some wicked yields and harvests out of it. So when I say a good soaking on this one, looking at how dry that soil was, and of course always remembering that biology is the bigger part of the soil equation, and if biology doesn't have enough water, nothing else can really happen. So given that, that's a whole watering can there, and that's starting to soak in. And I'm going to grab another full can. I'm going to let that soak down through, and then I'm going to come back and hit it again. I'll let you have a look in there. You can see it's completely flooded. We're going to saturate it, and ordinarily I wouldn't super saturate a plant, but when soil is super dry like that, it takes a long time to get it to take moisture back and to get its kind of its capillary action back. You get to a point where it's so dry it doesn't want to absorb water. I'm sure some of you have seen this after long droughts. When you get a rain, the water just runs off because it's so dry it can't really soak in. Alright, I think that's it for now for this. Thanks for watching the Pharmacy Seeds Network. Well, I guess that wasn't it. It's been about 2 minutes and the water is starting to seep out the bottom now. And you can see the top is it's soaking down through, like it's starting to break through that super dry thing. Like I said, I'll give it another dose. Okay, I think that's actually it for this. Thanks for watching the Pharmacy Seeds Network. Well, so I guess I wasn't done with that video yet again. So this is an Arctic frost orange tree that was given to me by a breeder friend of mine. It came as a very small tree. It's been growing bigger. It has flowered a couple times, but it also is put in the same soil program, or a similar soil program, and obviously has not had a good flush in a long time. You can see some salt buildup here, or crystallization. I don't know if that's from hard water or excess nutrients or what, but that's usually a sign. If you see that on top of your soil or in your soil, you probably should give it a really good flush. And of course, this one is also infested with ants, so this one's going to go up to this other pot, which is a little bigger. Not quite as big as I'd like to go, but I can't use up all my greenhouse space. So I'm going to do the same thing with the good soil and goat manure amendments, and the same thing with the real heavy soaking, flushing, and saturation, and hopefully that'll drown some of the ants and wipe some of these excess, I think they're salts or some type of carbonate buildup or something, and hopefully that'll balance things back out. I probably also will give this a light pruning just to kind of keep it bushing out. And I'll take a shot when I'm done. Okay, there's a light layer of goat manure, and I'm going to put a little light layer of soil on top of that, just as a little bit of a buffer. I don't have a lot of vertical room here to put as much as I'd like to down underneath, but that should help. And then now we'll drop her in, and we'll top up soil around the edges of it, etc., etc., etc. And you can see this transplant is basically just a diameter size change more than anything. And I'm going to struggle to get enough soil in this pot. But it's what I have handy at the moment without completely rearranging things here. Actually, I might use another pot. Hang on. So I had a rosemary that was struggling in some wet soil, and so I pulled it out. Guess I'll show you that quick. You can see it wasn't using the root space anyway. The soil's been too damp and not drying out right. So I'm going to take that rosemary and put that into a pot that's more appropriate with a little bit happier soil for it and improve it as well. I know it looks really sad right now, but we'll fix it. So we're going to use the pot that was in, which is much larger and I think much more appropriate for what will become my Arctic Frost orange tree. I can't wait to have my own fresh oranges. Oh man. So once again, a good layer. I dumped what was in the other pot, soil and manure out. I added a little more goat manure. I'll put another light layer of regular soil on that, and then we'll put the plant in there and fill around the edges and top up. And I would say that is a little bit more root space for it and a much more appropriate scaled pot to give it some room to grow out. So hopefully this tree will just take off and rock and roll. I'll give you a shot of it before I prune it, and I'll give you a shot after I prune it back a bit. Okay, so I've just given it a light pruning and a heavy watering, which is soaking down through now. That's the prunings off it, so you can see it's not a tremendous amount, but a little bit. I just went through basically and clipped out inner branches so we don't have two inner branches crossing over each other and shading out light inside. And some of the stuff that was trying to climb vertical, I've kind of done that to help kind of limit the vertical height on it, because I have an 8-foot limit here max in the greenhouse. And also that little bit of pruning will help change the cytokine auxin balance and help promote a little bit more root action. So that will help it get established into the new soil. I probably will come back with both of these, and I'm probably going to do similar action to these other few Meyer lemons that are starts from seed that are kind of having been neglected for a while. Anyway, I'll probably come back to those in like a week or so and hit them with a real light foliar feed of C-stem to help them really get going and get established. But I think that's it for now. I hope this helps someone. If anybody knows citrus better than I do, I'm certainly open to constructive criticism, comments, suggestion, advice, ideas. Thanks for watching the Pharmacy Seeds Network.